Hardy School, yes. And that was due to the residents generating the 300 to 400 people to go to that school because they felt that the outreach was not there. They felt that there was no communication. And I'm not only speaking about the Mass Ave Corridor project. I don't only want to speak about that. That is not my only concern in this town. I think we need to have the process start with the community. And that doesn't take much. That could be meetings in each community. If you're doing something in the Heights, have the meetings. Don't have a token advisory committee. Do a meeting with the people who look outside their window every day and see what they see. If you're going to change something outside that window, ask them. They know better. The 60 businesses in East Arlington knew exactly what was going on outside their window. They were not asked. That doesn't cost a penny. So that's the kind of outreach and communication that we need to have, one-on-one with people in a community situation. They want to listen to you. I've talked to hundreds of Arlington residents. They want to be heard. They want to share in the process, but let's make the process complete.
Thank you. Now we're going to just open it up for you guys to have a discussion amongst each other. You're more than welcome to ask a follow-up question of something that we've asked of you this evening. If you want to ask it of each of your candidates, if you want to focus that question on one, that would be fine. Or you can delve into something we haven't touched upon already.
Yeah, I'd like to ask Maria. Maria, give me an example of other projects that had as much public input as the Mass Ave Corridor project. Give me one example.
As much?
As much.
Like
a 400-person meeting.
I just said that I didn't think the Mass Ave Corridor project had a big outreach.
I know, right. I'm asking you for one that's had more than. Give me an example of what more outreach. For example, I told you, as a selectman, I was at 7 meetings. The Hardy School one was called by the Board of Selectmen. That was a selectmen's meeting that was called.
Absolutely correct.
I personally met with the businesses one morning when we invited all 60 businesses, and about 8 of them showed up, and listened to the businesses. And at all these 7 meetings, the businesses also presented. So all I'm asking you is give me an example of another project that had more input than the Mass Ave Corridor.
I don't know the answer to that question,
okay.
But I'm still going to go to the same fact that I just stated. There were 7 meetings. 2 or 3 out of the 7 had 85 people, 55 people. We have a population of over 40,000 people. A town, or even if you just did East Arlington, it's over 20,000. The outreach, you could say it any way you want. You could say there were 7 meetings. You could say there were 70 meetings. The population in East Arlington and along the other areas of this town felt it was not outreached properly. And there was a survey done with the businesses, and I asked the selectmen to go hand in hand with us to the 60 businesses and discuss it with them. Not a meeting that only had 7 or 8 businesses because maybe the time wasn't right for all the businesses to be present. That's an important issue when you're changing the fabric of the area of town where they make money. I'm still holding true to that. And that's just the way it is, that we can agree to disagree.
I actually have a follow-up question for Maria as well on the override. You said that you weren't for an override, and I was curious what might be some actions that you would take to bridge the gap that currently exists then.
Well, I said it earlier, we have to tighten up our belt. I know that we have cut many, many jobs. I understand that. But we can save money. We have assistant positions that have gone into regular positions. We can have eliminated salaries there. We don't need to have as big a payroll here. We still can save money. I'm not saying to put somebody out of a job, but let's make it more efficient. I don't think we need to look at the override right now. First of all, we don't know what the exact debt is because that's dependent on state and federal funding. I mean, that's just the way it is because I hear different figures on a different day. We're $4 million in debt, we're $2 million in debt, it is still a variable. So before I say yes, an override, I need to know that it has to absolutely happen. I'm not going to say I don't want to do it. But again, as I've said through every other project in this town, and that is a project, let's be totally efficient and thorough in our research before we make a commitment to anything. You do an override, it's permanent. And an override is not the answer when a 5-year plan ends. We can't have a 5-year plan and an override. 5-year plan and an override. You just can't keep doing it to people.
I think it's Maria's turn.
I think so.
Do you guys have any other follow-up questions for each other?
I guess I have one other. As I mentioned before, one of the main reasons I sort of got involved in this was driving around town and hearing other people complain about road conditions around here. Mass Ave aside, what is something that you see as a solution to the roads around Arlington to kind of bring them up to a better standard than what they are now? Either of you.
What about the roads?
I didn't know who it was directed to. I'm sorry.
Well, go ahead if you
No,
like to
no,
go
no,
first.
go ahead.
What about the roads in Arlington and how can we upgrade them? This is one of those issues that will never go away. With New England winters, we are always going to have the issue of potholes and that kind of a problem, that kind of an issue. One thing to be assured of is below the streets in Arlington is one of the best infrastructures in the state of Massachusetts. About 10 years ago, we started a plan of replacement of all pipes throughout the town of Arlington. But in terms of roads, I agree with Nathan. Take, for example, Forest Street, where we have certainly determined that needs to be repaved. No question about that, and I think you're particularly familiar with this and might want to comment on this. But so first of all, you have to study what needs to be done. Now, here's a complication. On Forest Street, my father, who served on the Board of Selectmen, and his board, some 25 years ago, allowed people to park cars on the sidewalk on Forest Street. Now it comes time for repaving, and because our budgets are so tight and there is nothing else to cut, we need to find other ways to pay for it, so we look to state funding, federal funding. Once you do that, now to get the state funding for this project, we cannot allow people to park their cars on the sidewalk because of handicap accessibility issues. So now we need an extra time to redesign Forest Street so those who bought their properties with the existing condition of thinking they could park on their sidewalks, we now have to find and build enough parking spaces for those on the street. So to improve Forest Street as one example of a road that has a lot of potholes and needs repaving, it will now be about a 3-year project from when we first proposed it to when it will be finally paved, I hope, this spring, Nathan, because we do have the state funding commitment for it.
Repeat the question.
Oh, I was asking just what solutions you might have in mind for the current road conditions throughout Arlington.
Well, just as Mr. Greeley said, the way in which we are going to pay for it is if we get state or federal funding. I mean, some of these roads are federal roads, so that is a given. We're entitled to it. Right. We just have to ask for it efficiently and prove that we need it. And